Well, hello. Welcome everyone to our spotlight Built on Values. And today I have with us Steve Sosland, who is the Chief People Officer for the Texas Tech System. And Steve, why don't you just explain a little bit what that is and what you do in your role as Chief People Officer?
Sure. First, thank you, Gail. Thanks for having me. And I love and have loved for 11 years now spending time with you. As Chief People Officer of the Texas Tech System, I really have 4 areas of responsibility. The first is to help each of our presidents to lead a values summit to identify the core values that exist within the organization, within the people in the organization, and then start building their culture around those core values, very similar as it's laid out in the values blueprint in your work and in Built on Values. So that's one, but those are temporary things. So we've got currently have 4 universities as part of the Texas Tech System. By the time we get to the end of the Texas State legislative session this year, we should have 5. And then the question is, okay, now what? Now we have values. We've got them identified. So the rest of my work in 3 different areas is on making sure that we're living those values. And so my role is, again, as an advisor to each of the presidents of the universities and the chancellor of the system, is to focus on values-based coaching, values-based leader development, and values-based recruiting, particularly for executives, so that we can have succession plans where we're using our values in what I've learned from you in order to be able to hire the next generation of leaders.
That's awesome. And Steve, we first met you in 2010 when you were the Chief People Officer, Chief Operating Officer of a hospital there in Texas, in the Hill Country. And I call you what we know as a serial values leader. And I don't mean the cereal that you eat. I mean, you have really taken the journey in a number of organizations. And so can you just tell us briefly how you got from that hospital to where you are now with Texas Tech?
Sure, you bet. If you remember, Gail, when I first engaged you and Ann to be able to help us at that hospital in the Hill Country of Texas, we were an underperforming hospital, bottom third in the nation in terms of quality and patient satisfaction. We needed help. And we started and decided we knew we wanted to change the culture. We just didn't know how. That's why we initially engaged you. That journey led us within 3 years to win the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award at that hospital in 2014. And that brought us some notoriety with the governor of Texas, and Mike Williams, who was president of or was CEO of the hospital, was asked to be president of a health sciences center in Fort Worth. I joined him on that journey in order to do the same thing, to be able to focus on a values-based culture, leader development, succession planning, et cetera. And then we really spent 3 years doing that, and I had the opportunity to come to Texas Tech, which is a much larger system, as I said, with 4 separate universities. And the president at the Health Sciences Center asked me to come do it there. He was selected and promoted to chancellor of the whole system, and he has now expanded and asked me to really expand what the success we've had at one university and help the other presidents to be able to get the cultures that they really want there. So that's the journey in a nutshell. I'm having the time of my life.
Can you talk just a little bit more about, so how do you position that in terms of the fact that we're all living in a values-based organization, and then how we create that for this particular entity, and a little bit about some of the differences in your case?
So 3 things. First of all, what my experience informs me is that every individual wants to be recognized that they have a strong set of core values. Organizations want to be able to bring people together around one culture. That's already a conflict, or it could be a conflict. So what we do that we learned from you is we start the conversation from the ground up. And at each of our value summits, we start with the individual identifying what their own core values are from wherever they happen to have gotten them. I've learned a lot along the way. I've made some mistakes along the way that I'm happy to share in another venue. But one of them was to assume that people grew up in a nurturing environment. Not true. Some people grew up hard. But by the time they come work for us, they already have a strong set of values. So what we do is we figure out, okay, everybody gets to verbalize their own values. Then we figure out what we have in common. Once we figure out what we have in common, then we say, of this group that we have in common, what do we want the organization to represent? So one is everybody wants to be unique, whether it's an individual person or an organization. They don't want to be wrapped into somebody else. I promise you, Texas Tech doesn't want to have the same list of values that Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center has. So we allow each university to do it. The second point is, what I've learned is that people don't care as nearly as much that their values are listed the same as the sister organization. They just want to work with other organizations that are values-based. Mm-hmm. Why do I want to fly Southwest Airlines or JetBlue? Why do I want View Homes to build my home? Mm-hmm. It's because they are organizations where the leadership and every individual on the team has committed to values-based culture. I just want to be around another values-based culture. Live your values. But by doing that, I know I'm gonna like our interaction. So that's the second point. And then I think the third point is really understanding that once we've identified the values, it's just the beginning. We have a values file. It's all about the behaviors. Again, what I've learned from you. If there are no actions that we've identified to live the values, they will not be lived. So all of those organizations that we go to their website, we see their list of values, don't mean a thing if they haven't operationalized them and have specific actions.
And before we leave our viewers today, I want to just suggest that they go to the Texas Tech system website and take a look at you've got so many rich things around values there. On your YouTubes are posted. You've got all of the work that you've done around your summits and how you did it, and you've got those examples of your values flyers. So I encourage folks to go there. And thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Steve. And we'll be back with Steve on this topic later.
Thanks, Gail.